Friends, welcome to yet another program of Aligarh Society of History and Archaeology. Last year, if you remember, we met in this same place where in October, Professor Irfan Habib delivered a lecture on Akbar and Sulhekul. That was in 2024. Now for this year, we thought that we would be celebrating a doyen amongst us who has always inspired generations of young historians. In fact, there was a time when a man who has now crossed on the other side of the border claimed that Irfan Habib is the only man in the land of pygmies. I don't know how far he was correct or not, but we have him as one of the living legends of history. Perhaps, if I'm not wrong, it is now 6 decades that he has been, minting out new historians every year. And there are a huge number of his students who are scattered all around the world. And when we decided to hold this program, it was very difficult for us whom to call, whom not to call. In fact, when we decided to have only limited people, there were many who wanted to be included, but I had to say sorry to them. I would start this program being one of your students, only telling about some aspects of what I have learned from you. The enduring legacy which Irfan Habib has on me, and that is never to buckle down under pressure. That is what my association with him since 1978 has taught me. Irfan Habib has been one of those whose resolve never wavered whatever the condition. There was no maslihat pasandi as far as his character was concerned. I will here give only 3 examples. One, which I witnessed way back in 1978. In room number 6, there was a program which was being held on Iranian Revolution. And that was the day when Khomeini had landed in Iran, and there were reports that Shah had fled. And the Iranian Association of Students who were here, and there were many during that period of time, they invited him along with certain others to speak on the occasion. Irfan Habib in room number 6 gave us an entire overview of the history of Iran, and everyone was clapping and happy, including those Iranians who were students here, and they were all 6-footers and and then suddenly Irfan Sahab reached the point when he said, and today Shah has fled and Khomeini has come, now what? And then he started giving his views on the Islamic revolution, and all hell broke loose. And there were people who were the same who were clapping, they were now attacking him. I remember Professor K.P. Singh, who was presiding over the function. He and others escorted him out. When there was some, semblance, he once again was brought in, and he started from the same position. And once again, he had to leave and come again. And by this time, the Iranians had perhaps given up. And then there was a complete silence, and everyone heard what he had to say. That day there was a great danger to him. He could have been harmed, but he did not give up. He said whatever he wanted to say. That was the first occasion when I learned how to behave in face of adversity. And then, who can forget the period of 1981 when an agitation was launched. Once again, I'm not going into the details. Once again, he stood as a rock. I'm not going into the details of what happened, what not happened, but once again, he gave us a teaching how to act if one is faced with something which one does not believe in. And thirdly, I remember 2019 at Kannur, when this association through which we are holding this program was born. There was this gentleman who called himself as the old boy of Aligarh, who was the governor, and he was delivering a speech which was highly objectionable, not only to the minorities of the country, but also to Aligarh. It was he who stood up to oppose what he was saying and stop him. So, these are the three examples. There are examples after examples. But this is what I have learned from him, that how to behave and never give up whenever you are faced with a challenge. All of us know how he is as a historian. In fact, one of his contemporaries, and who has also not generally agreed with him on a number of points, Professor Harbans Mukhia. In one of his writings, he says that the greatest contribution of Irfan Habib is the fact that he changed the course of history when history was being written only about the kings, the monarchs. His agrarian system, which came out in 1963, changed the entire narrative, and now for the first time, studies started about classes in the Indian history, and we had the agrarian system, which influenced a large number of budding historians, so much so that the agrarian system came to be known as the Bible for those who study medieval Indian history. Later on, he went on to add certain aspects which had been missed out by others. For example, his two atlases, one on medieval Indian history, the other on ancient Indian history. I don't have time that I elaborate on those things, but it was he who wrote on technology, on peasants, on agrarian classes, village communities. His atlases told us about historical geography. And in fact, ultimately in 2000, another shift was created by him, and that was when now from the elites he shifted the focus to the common people. It was in 2000 that his journal on people's history started coming out. Not only his journal, but a number of books which were known as People's History series, they were brought about, so much so that now, after whatever he has done through 2000s, today it is 2025, that now there is a trend of writing and doing work on people's history of people like you and me, which was single-handedly by him as far as the Indian history is concerned. Lastly, who can forget his endeavors in his fight against communalism? In fact, the society which he is heading, Aligarh Historian Society, started taking shape in 1970s itself, when he formed a group known as Aligarh Historians Group, whose basic purpose was to challenge the communal writing of history. I still remember the days, sir, when as a research scholar, you handed over pamphlets where, a number of examples of communal writings of well-known historians, you would challenge them, and then they were distributed amongst the people, especially during the Indian History Congress and other such meetings. I won't say much about how he was or is as a teacher, nor I would talk here about how he is as a supervisor. I might after some time, but at the moment I have already taken much of your time in introducing the man. No introduction as such. On this brief sketch of what is the personality whom we are going to pay homage to, I request my colleague and the secretary of the Aligarh Society of History and Archaeology, Professor Jabir Raza Sahab, to come forward and present a shawl on our behalf, on the behalf of his students, to Professor Irfan Habib. पूरा खोला नहीं वरना फिर लपेटना पड़ेगा। It is not only his old gray-haired students who want to honor him. There are certain youngsters whom you have never taught directly, but who wish to make a presentation to you. I request Mr. Ajmal and Shadid to come here. Ajmal has made a sketch of yours and would like to present that to you. I now request Professor Farhat Hasan to come and pay his tribute to Irfan Sahab. Professor